welcome to the deep dive. You sent over some really interesting material this time, an article from Josh Software, and it's really zeroing in on optimizing Rails database queries, specifically when you're sort of wrestling with nested scopes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a common pain point.
Mhm.
And in this deep dive, we're really aiming to, you know, cut through the technical jargon and pull out the practical stuff.
Right.
Our mission, if you will, is to give everyone listening a solid handle on how to use these nested scopes effectively, make those Rails apps faster, and dodge those performance bottlenecks that, let's face it, can be super frustrating.
Okay, cool. Let's dig in. So the article starts with something pretty fundamental, query optimization itself. Now, anyone who's run a Rails app knows this is, well, critical. Things can fly or they can just crawl. Why is it so vital to get these database queries right?
Well, it really comes down to the user experience, doesn't it? I mean, slow database queries, that means slow pages, slow interactions. Nobody likes waiting around.
Yeah.
And beyond just the user-facing side, inefficient queries hammer your database server. That means, higher costs, maybe more resources needed, and things can even get unstable if you have a lot of traffic. So it's performance and reliability, really.
And the article jumps right into a classic problem,
Yeah.
the N+1 query. It sounds a bit technical maybe, but the concept is pretty simple and happens all the time. Can you walk us through what an N+1 query actually is and why it's such a performance killer?
Sure thing. So imagine you've got a list of blog posts, right? And each post has, say, a bunch of comments.
Uh-huh.
An N+1 situation is when your code first makes one query, just one, to grab all the posts. Let's say you have N posts.
Okay.
Then for each of those N posts, it goes back to the database again to fetch the comments for that specific post.
Ah, I see.
So you end up with that first query plus N, more queries, one for each post, hence N+1.
Right, 1 plus N. Makes sense.
The article uses a good example with post and comments. The key thing is sometimes simple-looking loops over associations. They can hide this explosion of database calls. You got to be aware of what's happening under the hood.
Right, yeah, the example showed fetching all posts with post.all, then looping through, and inside the loop calling post.comments.count. Seems innocent enough.
Exactly, but that little dot count inside the loop, that's the trigger. For every single post in that collection, Rails hits the database again just to count the comments for that post.
Yeah.
If you have, I don't know, 50 posts, that's 51 database queries instead of maybe just 2. It scales terribly.
Wow, okay, that definitely clarifies why it's a problem. So N+1 queries, bad. Got it. But thankfully, Rails gives us ways to fix this. The article points out two main tools, preload and includes. Let's tackle preload first. What's it doing? When's the right time to use it?
Okay, preload. It's pretty straightforward. Its job is to fetch those associated records, like the comments for the posts. But the really crucial thing to remember about preload is how it does it. It uses 2 separate database queries. Yep. First query gets the main things, the posts. Second query gets all the comments for all those posts, usually using a where posted in clause with the IDs from the first query. And importantly, as the article notes, preload does not use joins.
No joins. Okay, so 2 queries is obviously way better than N+1. When is preload the best fit then? The article seemed to suggest it's when you just need to loop through the associated stuff without filtering on them.
That's exactly it. The article's example, just displaying all comments for all posts. Perfect preload scenario. If you just need to do something like post.comments.eachDoComment, and you don't need to filter those comments, say, by author or date or anything in the query itself, then post.preload.comments is great.
Gotcha.
It grabs all the posts, grabs all the needed comments in query 2, and Rails wires them up in memory. Efficient for that use case.
Okay, that makes sense. Preload for simple iteration. Now, what about includes? This one sounds a bit more nuanced. The article says it can act differently.
Yeah, includes is definitely the smarter sibling, you could say. Its goal is the same stop N+1 queries when you access associations. But includes is clever because it looks at what you're doing next. It asks, are they going to filter or query based on this association I'm loading?
Okay. So what if the answer is no? What if I just use includes like I would preload, just to iterate?
Good question. And in that case, as the article points out, includes behaves exactly like preload.
Oh, really?
Yep. If there's no subsequent where a clause or condition that references the associated table, includes just says, okay, simple case, and does the 2 separate queries, just like preload.
Okay, interesting. But the real magic happens when you do want to filter on the association, right? The article says Rails then switches things up, uses eagerload, which does a left outer join. Why is that join important?
Right. This is where includes really shines. If you write something like user.includes.posts.where.title, Rails sees that where clause hitting the posts table. It knows you need to filter based on post data. So instead of loading all posts for all users and then filtering in Ruby, which would be inefficient, it generates a single SQL query using a left outer join.
Ah, okay.
That join pulls data from both the users and posts tables together, letting the database do the filtering where posts.title equals Rails directly. It's usually much, much faster for these filtered cases, gets everything in one database trip.
So the example they gave, finding the first user with a post titled Rails user.includes.wales.post.rails. Because of that, where on posts includes triggers the join.
Precisely. Avoids n+1 completely in that filtering scenario. So the key difference boils down to preload always uses separate queries. Includes chooses separate queries for simple access, or a join if you filter on the association.
That's a really clear distinction. Okay, great. Now, the article then pivots to the main event, nested scopes. Let's set up the example they use. We've got user, post, comment, standard associations, has me, belongs to, but then they add a recent scope on both post and comment. What's that recent scope doing?
Yeah, the recent scope is pretty typical. In their example, it's defined to just grab records, posts, or comments created in the last 2 days. So basically yesterday and today, based on a date column, useful for showing, what's new.
And they make it a bit easier to use by adding specific associations like has many.recent posts on user and has many.recent comments on post. These just use a lambda to apply that recent scope automatically, right?
Exactly. It's just syntactic sugar, really. Makes the code read a bit nicer. So you can write at user.recentPosts instead of at user.posts.recent. Same result, cleaner call.
Okay. Now, here's where the complexity comes in, according to the article. The scenario is, we want a specific user's recent posts, but only those posts that also have recent comments written by a specific admin user.
Right, stacking conditions.
Yeah. And the first attempt shown is just chaining them at user.recentposts.recentcomments.where, comments.use.admin.ide. Looks logical, but it doesn't work. Why does that fall apart?
Yeah. It seems like it should work, doesn't it? But the problem is where recent comment is defined, it's a scope on the post model designed to work on a single post's comments. But at user.recentPosts returns an active record. Basically a collection of posts. You can't just call a scope meant for one post's comments directly on a whole collection of posts like that. Rails doesn't know how to apply that single post logic across the group in that specific chained way.
Right. It's like recent comments knows how to find recent comments for this post, but not how to find posts that have recent comments from within a collection. We need a different approach.
Exactly. And the article provides the working solution using a combination of includes, where, and a method called merge. Let's break down their solution. At user.recentposts.includes, comments.user.where, comments.user.admin.merge, comment.recent.
Okay, step by step at user.recentPosts that gets the user's post from the last 2 days. We got that. Then .includes, comments.user. Why include both .comments and the nested .user here?
Good question. The .includes, comments.user, is crucial for loading the data we need efficiently. We include .comments because we obviously need the comments to filter them.
Makes sense.
And we nest .user under .comments because our filter condition involves the comments author. We need to check comments.userid. So we tell Rails, hey, when you fetch the comments, make sure you also fetch the associated user for each comment.
So we can check the userid without causing another n+1 query just to get the comment author.
Precisely. Includes here prevents n+1 queries for both the comments themselves and for the users associated with those comments. Because we have a where clause coming up that references comments, includes will likely use joins to fetch all this efficiently.
Okay, that clears up the includes part. Next is userid comments.userid. Just filter the comments we loaded to only keep the ones written by the admin.
Yep. This where condition applies to the associated comments table, likely within the join that includes generated. So the database finds posts that have comments where the userid matches our admin.id.
Right. Now for the key part, the .merge, comment.recent. This is how we apply the recent criteria to the comments, not just the posts. How does merge work its magic here?
Merge is super useful. It basically takes the conditions from another active record relation or scope and adds them to the current query.
Okay.
So comment.recent represents a query for all comments created in the last 2 days. It has its own where clause for the date. When we call .merge comment.recent on our existing query,
Uh-huh.
we're essentially taking that date condition from comment.recent and adding it to the conditions we already have on the comments association. So the query becomes find the user's recent posts that have comments by the admin A&D where those comments also satisfy the comments recent scope's date condition.
Ah. So merge lets us inject the where clause from the comment.recent scope into the part of our query that deals with the comments association. It combines the filtering logic.
Exactly, that's the trick. It lets you apply a class-level scope, like comment.recent, to an association within a larger query. The article also mentions you could use joins instead of includes. Using joins explicitly tells Rails, I need to filter based on this association, guaranteeing the join happens, which might sometimes be slightly more performant, depending on the database, but includes often gets it right automatically.
This whole dot include dot where dot merge pattern seems really powerful for these nested conditions. It keeps the query efficient and the code somewhat readable, even when the logic gets complex.
That really is the main takeaway, I think. Understanding how unincludes handles loading and potential joins, and how merge lets you combine scope conditions, that gives you the tools to build efficient queries for complex scenarios involving nested scopes and associations in Rails without grinding your app to a halt.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the big points from this deep dive. Query optimization is just non-negotiable for good performance.
Absolutely.
N+1 queries are a common trap, easily created but avoidable. We saw preload is good for simple loading 2 queries, no joins. That includes smarter acts like preload sometimes, but uses joins when you filter on associations.
The adaptable one.
And for these tricky nested scope situations, combining includes to load related data efficiently with where for direct filtering and merge to apply scopes to associations is a really effective pattern.
You've got it. And, it's always worth looking at your development logs sometimes. So the actual SQL Rails is generating.
Yeah.
It helps build intuition for what these methods are really doing.
That's solid advice. Always good to peek under the hood. So for everyone listening, thinking about the performance benefits we've discussed, maybe ask yourself, how could you start applying these preload includes and merge techniques in your own Rails work? Are there parts of your app right now that might be suffering from N+1s or inefficient nested queries?
Yeah, definitely worth investigating. Look for loops accessing associations. Check those logs for repeated queries. Try preload first for simple cases. Use includes when you need filtering. And don't forget merge when you need to apply a scope's conditions to an association. It's a powerful toolkit.
Excellent summary. Well, thanks for digging into this with us. We hope this gives you some practical strategies. Feel free to explore these ideas further, maybe test them out, and see the performance difference. Until next time on The Deep Dive.